Looking for something to read? Well, these are the books that I've written. Hop on down to the description to find the Amazon links for all 4 of them, and keep your eyes open for more in the future. With that said, on to the video. Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am the Omni viewer, and I did not go to San Diego Comic-Con in 2023. This statement might leave some of you wondering how I got my hands on the SDCC exclusive version of Super7's Ultimate Godzilla figure, known as the Thirsty for Blood variant. Well, you see, after the convention, this figure went up for order on Big Bad Toy Store, which renders its status as a convention exclusive somewhat moot. Well, since I've got one, I may as well see if it's worthy of adding to the collection. I had pre-ordered the standard version of this figure a while ago, but after realizing that I needed to pinch some pennies, I cancelled it, figuring it was something I could always add later if I really wanted to. Then on a whim, I ordered this one, and it shipped a lot sooner than I expected. From what I understand, this is the exact same figure as the 1989 version, but with a color scheme based on the famous cover from the Dark Horse comics. You can even see this art displayed on the slipcover, as well as a description on the back to give it context. The only interesting thing about the box worth noting is an extra window on top, which I haven't seen with other figures in this line. What few I've gotten anyway. Enough about that though. Let's get this dude out of the box and see if he can sell me on getting the rest of the line. Godzilla ships with his tail detached, but putting it on is easy enough. The assembly is a simple ball and socket, but once it's on, well, we'll get into the finer details in a moment. As I said, this is based on a comic book cover, one that depicts Godzilla as bright green with yellow claws and a bloody mouth. The paint is applied well, considering there's not much variation. Even the spines are green, which is accurate to the comic. The main variation is to be found on the heads. Yes, rather than have a hinged jaw, you have to switch out the noggins depending on if you want the mouth open or closed for display. Putting that aside, both heads look good. The eyes are bright and painted evenly, and the double rows of teeth are nicely rendered in the open mouth. The blood is a glossy red that has a slightly different texture than the rest of the paint, which adds a lot to the overall look. Never mind that the Heisei Godzilla's blood is actually a yellowy green. In the comic, it's red. We also have 3 sets of hands to choose from. The figure ships with what I'll call the neutral hands attached, though they can be switched out for closed fists or... I think I'll call these the expressive hands. The fists obviously are good for a fighting stance, or perhaps something reminiscent of a classic Showa pose, while the expressive hands are good for a charging pose. There's another function they serve, but I'll get to that in a moment. Unfortunately, now I have to get critical. After those Power Rangers Zords figures that I reviewed, I had high hopes for what Super7 could do with Godzilla in the Ultimates line. But this figure has got a lot of issues. You might notice how obvious the various joints are. This is especially true with the shoulders, hips, and knees, where huge gaps are visible no matter what angle you look at it from. Normally, I would say that these gaps are necessary to allow for wider range of movement, but that's not the case here, as the limbs cannot move in ways that require these gaping spaces to be there. The worst offender in this regard, however, is the tail. I told you I'd be getting back to it, and maybe you already noticed what I'm about to say. Once it's attached, it is not flush with the body at all. In fact, you can still see the barbell to which it attaches. This creates a huge problem when moving it around. Here, watch as I'm demonstrating the articulation. Notice how every time I move this guy, even just a little bit, the tail shifts? So not only is it not flush with the body, it's also really loose, which makes getting him into the pose you want very difficult, if not impossible. This is a design flaw that really should have been eliminated in the testing phase and never should have made it to the final product. I mean, how the heck did this happen? I've got other articulated figures of Godzilla and none of them look like this. The figures from NECA may be stiff, but the joints are still flush. The Hayatoy's Godzilla might have loose neck pieces, but they can stay in place, and there's even a reissue coming that fixes this issue. I should also point out that both the NECA and Hayagojis are comparatively less expensive, so how Super7 could produce a figure like this for a higher price tag is truly baffling to me. Even the Hammond Collection dinosaurs at least tried to make the seams look organic. You might argue that it's meant to be reminiscent of the Trendmasters figures, but even Trendmasters didn't have issues like this. Heck, the Playmates Monsterverse line doesn't have issues like this, and those are not high-end collectibles. I really am astonished that this happened. There is one last item that's exclusive to this figure. We have this little terrified human as part of the set. Details are light when compared to Godzilla, but between the glasses, the receding blonde hair, and the goatee, he looks like Adam Savage from Mythbusters, so that's what I'm calling him from now on. You might notice that Adam Savage is molded in a weird pose, and the reason for this brings us back to the expressive hands. It turns out that Adam Savage fits quite comfortably into the right expressive hand, facing Godzilla with a look of terror on his sparsely detailed face. It's a funny little addition that completely destroys any sense of scale the figure otherwise had. Remember, the Dark Horse comics were about the Heisei Godzilla. This means that Godzilla is supposed to be 100 meters or 328 feet tall, which is absolutely huge. Even when Godzilla was smaller, you could barely see humans beside him. They were never this tall. So getting back to the figure, the scale of Adam Savage to Godzilla means that either the former is huge or the latter is tiny. He might actually be closer to the classic size of King Kong, which makes his coincidental scaling to the NECA Kong figure a happy accident, but it's still inaccurate. I gotta say guys, I'm disappointed with this figure. Assuming that it's otherwise the same as the standard Super 7 Godzilla, this thing is flawed in the extreme, and the thing is that I know they can do better. The Power Rangers Zords figures are exquisite after all. They not only look show accurate, but they also incorporate articulation without compromising the aesthetic. I mean, sure, they're robots with toyetic designs, but the Super 7 team still brought its A game to those figures, and they are absolutely shelf-worthy. So what happened here? How on earth did they screw up Godzilla this badly? It's not like the figure is totally worthless, mind you. The articulation is still good, and the design is an accurate replication of the Heisei era, which is one of Godzilla's most iconic looks. I want to like this figure, I really do. I want to say that its virtues outweigh its flaws, but I can't. The name Ultimates implies a high level of quality, and this Godzilla simply does not live up to that name. As such, I just can't in good faith recommend this figure. Maybe if an improved reissue comes along, that might be worth it, but as is, they could have done better. Well, such is the way of things. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni Viewer signing off. And in case you're wondering, it also doesn't scale very well with the Zords either, which feels like a huge missed opportunity to me. Thank you all for watching. If you want to see us keep doing what we're doing, you might consider doing all the usual YouTube things, as well as hopping down to the description to find links to DeviantArt, Patreon, Twitter, and links for the different books in the Tales from the Omni Vault universe. Your support is naturally appreciated. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.